Hello and welcome to Thursday Thoughts. Thursday Thoughts? What on earth are they, I hear you ask? Well, my friend Lucy and I meet every week over on Instagram to talk all things personal growth because she is as obsessed with it as I am. And we decided that we might as well put those conversations out as a weekly podcast. So now you can listen to us chat here on Apple Podcasts or Spotify or wherever you listen to your podcasts. And we'll be talking about topics such as spirituality, limiting beliefs, the ego, imposter syndrome, gratitude, meditation, confidence, and so much more. So if you're ready, here we go. That's what it's all about, not being perfect, which is all good, isn't it?
Exactly.
And that actually is something I suppose we can talk about today on this live because we're talking all about uncertainty. Okay, it's quite an interesting topic, this one, because uncertainty is just part of life, isn't it? But it's something which we all find so difficult to deal with.
Yeah.
And yet it's something which is always, always there. And I think, we obviously find it difficult to deal with because as human beings, we've been evolved to survive and to stay safe. And part of that is that we have learned, we like to know how we can stay safe. So safety is everything. So the more we can feel safe, then obviously that is going to help our survival. It's when our nervous systems feel relaxed and we're in that parasympathetic mode. When there is something which we're unsure of or is unknown, that fear of the unknown is like one of the biggest fears I think we have as human beings. When we don't know what is going to happen and we have that uncertainty, then obviously our nervous systems shift into that fight or flight mode because we've got to deal with it. It might potentially be a threat. So then we get into this sympathetic state, which a lot of us don't like the feeling of. It can really trigger anxiety and fear. And so we tend to then avoid those feelings of uncertainty, but we avoid going into those places of unknown. And I was thinking about kids actually with this because children are so good at uncertainty generally, particularly very young kids. Because if you think about it, every single thing that they do in their life is uncertain because they're experiencing and navigating the world for the first time. So they're much better at it. But I think as we get older and as we kind of get stuck in our ways and we know what we like and we become a little bit more fearful. Well, I think we become a lot more fearful of uncertainty and we don't like those feelings and we try then to avoid those feelings and then we stay safe. And then when we do that too much, that's when we can actually get really stuck and stagnant in our own ways because it feels too scary and uncomfortable to push ourselves out of into places of uncertainty.
Totally. And the thing about uncertainty, at least in my opinion, is that most of the kind of really exciting, wonderful stuff in life is very often on the other side of uncertainty. And the problem is that our ego is constantly trying to keep it, like you say, keep us safe and make sure that we do the things that are known, make sure that we do the things that we've done before 1,000 times. It doesn't want us to do anything that is uncertain. But actually, when you're trying to, anything new really is uncertain. And it kind of goes back to faith, actually, that we've talked about before, having that faith in when you take a leap into the unknown, you have to have that faith that the universe is going to catch you, that the net will appear. And I have definitely found that I think any kind of expansion or growth requires uncertainty, because anything that is going to expand our lives means that we're going to have to do something that we haven't done before. So I think it's really about learning to embrace uncertainty. And the problem is we're so conditioned to think that we have to do things in a certain way. We have to do this, and then we have to do that, and then we have to get, we have to do the job that has the pension and the healthcare and the 9 to 5 and all of that kind of stuff, just thinking about it from a job perspective. And so the problem with that is that we are often unwilling to dive into something that is completely unknown because, like you say, it doesn't feel safe. But with so many things, we've talked about comfort zones before, but this is kind of similar because I really think we have to learn to be able to step outside of our comfort zones and do something that is unknown, because actually we can only grow when we really step into that and when we just embrace that uncertainty. Because, like I say, the magic of life so often lies on the other side of uncertainty. It's in, and we forget, I think, that, you know, the way that we live in this world is through our five senses. As us humans, it's all about what we can see and hear and touch and taste and smell, and anything outside of that we don't trust. But actually we only see, I don't know what the percentage is, but we see such a tiny percentage of reality through our human 5D senses, 3D even senses, that we forget that there is so much more in this world and in this universe that we just can't see.
Yeah.
So actually, we're kind of crazy to not lean into that, because there's just so much more potential on the other side of that uncertainty, if that
Definitely.
makes any sense at
Yeah,
all.
no, absolutely. But I also think that there's so much more that we can sense which we don't realize, as within this 3D as well. So for example, so many of us are very disconnected from ourselves. We're just rushing around, we're in our head a lot of the time, and we don't have that awareness of all of those sensations happening in our body. But the more that you can, have that interoceptive awareness within your body, so that and you, by getting still and by having, doing all these practices like meditation, like breath work, like kind of just listen, can you feel your heart beating? Can you hear all these things, really understanding your body. The more that you can be aware of that, you are able to, well, it's kind of like your intuition. You have this knowing, you get this inner knowing. You have so many incredible senses, as you said, but you get to listen to this inner knowing, which is all of the knowing that you have accumulated in this lifetime, maybe other lifetimes. It's all of this knowing, and that you can then sort of trust, as you said, it's like trusting that. But because often we're so busy and we're so dissociated from that, it feels virtually impossible. There was a
Yeah.
really cool study done with some guys, some people in the city, who were and it was about how they made their decisions to put their money, invest in certain stocks or shares or something like that. And those people who had much higher interoceptive awareness of kind of how their inner workings are, how their feelings are, who are more in touch with what's going on in their body.
Mm.
They made much better decisions in the stock market of where to put their money than the people who didn't. So just because they were going more on their gut instincts, they were going more on their intuition,
Mm.
which is, often that's, if we can trust that more, that helps us in kind of uncertain moments, because no one's ever going to know the outcome. None of us ever are going to know the outcome. But it's how do you navigate those times? It's almost like those pauses, isn't it? It's like, oh my God, what do I do?
Mm.
Which way do I go? So what are you going to do? You either freeze and go, I can't make that decision. You can use your cognitive brain and like really weigh up the pros and the cons, the pros and cons. But then even then you still get stuck, because what if the lists are equal? So ultimately, what is the thing? So you can then go tap into that intuition, those feelings. But ultimately, you've just got to take a bloody step forward.
Yeah.
Fear, action is the antidote of fear. You've just
Yeah.
got to just take that step. And actually, that then kind of builds the momentum. And then you'll find out,
Yeah.
was it the right decision or was it not? And actually, it's never as bad as you think. How many times have you in your life done something you were absolutely bloody terrified to do? You were uncertain, you couldn't make the decision,
Mm.
You then did the thing, and then you're like, oh my God, I don't know what I was worrying about. It was
Yeah.
like, that was just like I made the right choice, or I didn't make the right choice. So now I know I can make a different choice. a very quick break to ask you to hit the follow or subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're enjoying this episode, I'd be super grateful if you could hit those stars and rate it too. Thank you.
Yeah, totally. I also think there's a little bit of sort of risk taking that comes into this as well. And I think we are a culture, we're as a culture, we're quite risk averse. And I mean, actually, I think I've always been one of those people who is a bit more predisposed to taking risks than others. But I think, it's not always a bad thing to take a risk and do something that do something that is unknown. And when I'm just thinking back over my life and everything kind of exciting that's ever happened. Oh my god, I think that's the guy. I think that's the Wi-Fi guy at the door, Polly. So Polly and I are back. Oh, Polly's about to come on now. We got interrupted earlier because the Wi-Fi guy turned up at my front door, so I had to go. But we're going to carry on our conversation about uncertainty. So we were talking about uncertainty. So this is part 2 of our conversation. But basically, this is a really good example. Our Monday motivations and our Friday motivations today, they're a really bloody good example of just taking action when you're uncertain. And we basically, when we started doing these Monday motivations, we really did not have a freaking clue of how they were going to go down, whether anyone was going to give a shit, what people were going to think. But what we, in relation to this topic, what we did was we took action anyway. We took action with complete uncertainty in terms of how this is going to go. And every single week, I might add that you and I very rarely do any prep whatsoever for these lives, ever. And I think I've done prep for about 2 conversations, but more often than not, we are scrambling at 8:30 in the morning going, oh, what should we talk about? So this live is actually really good. Hopefully this might inspire some people to just take that leap, because so often I truly believe that clarity follows action. And when we are uncertain, what we've got to do in order to find that certainty is to take the action. Because if we're waiting to be certain or clear about anything, we're never going to take the action. Whereas when you just take action, clarity follows action, and then things start to feel less uncertain and you start to feel more certain. And again, this live that we do is a good example of that. We just jump on here and somehow we manage to fill 30 minutes every Monday morning with God knows what, but we don't do any prep, and we just end up talking about whatever. But somehow we just do it because we have faith that we're going to get on this live and we're just going to chat for half an hour, and we always kind of make it happen.
And the thing is, if we thought about it too much, if we'd thought about this too much, we just would never do it. And the whole purpose of doing these lives, for anyone who didn't know, was because you and I wanted to get more confident with just coming onto Instagram live and just being able to talk freely and not fret about it, not worry about what everyone's going to think. And try and kind of get rid of those demons, which, let's be honest, so many of us have. So we decided that we'd try and meet once a week and just get on and talk about something which we generally would talk about anyway. And we could have very easily have just gone, oh my God, what are we going to talk about? How are we going to make it all perfect? What are we going to do? And actually we just went, no, sod it. We'll just come up with a topic each week, generally just before we do it. We don't really do too much prep. What comes out of our mouths comes out of our mouths. And then we decided to upload it to our podcast platforms, and people are actually listening to it. So it just goes to show that even when we had no idea, we were not sure would come out of this, but actually some people actually really enjoy listening to it. And it's also a really fun, pleasurable thing to do. I really look forward to these conversations. And if I did and think about it too much, then I probably wouldn't. And I would probably, it probably would be really not a very pleasurable thing to be doing.
Yeah.
So a lot of it, as we said before in part 1, was about trust and trusting that you are going to make the right decision, because ultimately that's what uncertainty is. It's like, do I do this or do I do that? And we're so worried about making the wrong
Yeah.
decision that
Yeah.
that's when you get stuck in the uncertainty.
Yeah.
So it's about just trusting that whatever decision you make is is the right one.
Yeah.
Because even if it doesn't feel like it was the right one, you've found out quickly that it wasn't, and you can adjust and you can move forward
Exactly.
with that.
Exactly. One other thing that's just occurred to me about these lives, about another sort of uncertainty aspect of it, when we put these out, because you and I said to each other when we started, we were like, when we decided to put them out on both of our podcasts, we were like, we are not going to edit these at all
Mm,
because we're both way too busy to have another podcast to edit. So we just literally add the intro, I top and tail it, like chop the bit off at the beginning when we're saying, hi, how you doing? And just kind of get straight into the conversation. But my point is that I come off them and I never remember what I've said. And I never, ever, ever listen through to these podcasts, ever. I never
no.
listen through to Thursday Thoughts. I just don't. And I think that's a really, that feels very uncertain. But again, it is my ego that wants to listen through to it so that I can feel safe that what I said was okay or acceptable or not completely fuckwitish or anything else. But I just don't. So again, it really is about leaning into the uncertainty of life and remembering that so often all the magic is on the other side of that. The most interesting things a lot in life do not lie in the things that are familiar, do not lie in the things that are known. Most of the magic of life lies in the unknown. So I really want to encourage people to just lean into a bit more into the unknown and into uncertainty, and actually try and reframe it as being kind of exciting. I mean, I remember taking an example from my own life. I remember when I quit my 9 to 5 and I literally quit a job in the middle of COVID with absolutely no fucking clue no clue what I was going to do. Everything was completely uncertain. And that decision, that kind of courage that I found to walk away and walk towards complete uncertainty, is probably the best decision I've ever made in my life, because it's led to the podcast, it's led to a book deal, it's led to you and me meeting, it's led to, so many things that have come out of certainty. And I think what we really want to remember is that there are so many things in life that are fabulous that we don't know about, and there is always opportunity and there is always potential. And I think sometimes we hold ourselves back because we want to be able to see and touch exactly, we want to be able to, we want certainty, so we want to be able to do the things that we know. And it is, of course, it is scary to take a leap into the unknown. But what I'm trying to say is, so often that is where we're going to find the really exciting stuff and the really cool stuff, and opportunities start coming into your life. And there is so much more potential than we realize. We mustn't allow ourselves to be held back by all of the things that we're conditioned to do, and these paths, these well-trodden paths that we're so used to treading. Because when you move off the path, that is so well trodden, that's when you find really exciting, new, unknown stuff that can be the best fucking thing that ever happens to you.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. And I think everyone has their own way of doing that. And I think, as we said before, you can think about it, you can use your mind to weigh it all up, or you can just go on the feelings that you've got. And if you just feel that actually this is what you really want to do, but there's something stopping you, which is probably the fear and the uncertainty,
Mm,
then you just need that bit of courage within you just to go for it. And sometimes that is absolutely terrifying
mm,
to do that. I mean, I've done lots of different career things recently. When I gave up teaching, I started a tuition business, I gave that up, and all of those required little bits of courage to go, okay,
mm,
I've made that decision. I don't know what's on the other side of this, but I'm just gonna trust it and I'm gonna do it.
Mm,
And yeah, every one of those decisions, looking back in hindsight, was the right decision. It really
mm,
was the right decision. If I hadn't have done it, what's the alternative? I would have been stuck in a job which was just which I didn't like and which was making me miserable. And it's so easy to do that. And how many people do we all know doing jobs? And you ask them, how is it going? And they just like, oh God, it's just, I
yeah.
just got to wait, get till Friday. And that is not a way to live. And
Uh,
I know that we all need money to live, and I know that we all have responsibilities, but it's about, even if you can just take the smallest action in the direction that you want to go, and even if it is a side hustle, which you do alongside your job, and just see if you can actually try and make something of it, carve out those extra 20 minutes each day to do whatever it is which lights up your
mm,
soul. So it's just really feeling into that
yeah,
discomfort of uncertainty,
yeah,
and all the things we talk about on Monday Motivation or Thursday Thoughts, whichever one you listen to, is so much about it is that building that resilience to that discomfort.
yeah,
We're all going to feel it. That all that discomfort is the unknown,
yeah,
and that, as we've said before, that's just your body's way of trying to keep you safe and trying to
exactly.
survival. But actually, what is the worst that can
Yeah,
happen?
totally. And just remember and try and be mindful of the fact that so often it is your ego self rather than your higher self that is trying to run the show, trying to drive the car. It's your ego that is trying to stop you doing the things that you in your heart know that you want to do. And I have found that generally in life, when you have the courage to leap into complete uncertainty, somehow the net does always appear. Something tends to work out, things tend to work themselves out. So I just think that we've got to remind ourselves that there is so much exciting stuff if we can just take that leap of faith into the unknown and just find out what's on the other side. Because if we don't take that leap of faith into the unknown, then we're never going to know what's on the other side. And we're going to stay in the familiar and the comfortable and the known. And that's not always the most exciting life. So I just think it's worth reminding ourselves that actually generally in life things work out, and even if you find yourself in a really sticky situation, you know things tend to come to you that just mean that it's all okay in the end. So yeah, just take risks and leap into the unknown, because on the other side of uncertainty is so much awesomeness, and I just think it's really worth remembering that.
Yeah.
And like you were saying, we trust that intuitive part of yourself, trust what your body is telling you. And if you feel like you want to do something but it's so uncertain, so actually the ego part of you is really scared, and the ego part of you is going, no, don't do this, it's not safe, you don't know what's going to happen. Try and you know block out the noise of your ego and listen to that still small voice inside of you that is going, but I really want to do this, but I just feel that this feels exciting to me and this feels interesting to me. Follow that. Follow the excitement, follow what makes you feel good, follow what lights you up, even if it seems completely bonkers. Because I've done things in my life that have seemed completely bonkers to other people, but I knew in myself that it was just, I didn't even know really why. I certainly didn't know how it was going to pan out, but I just knew that it was the right thing to do. And so I took that leap into the unknown. And it is incredible how the net does catch you. It's amazing, really.
Yeah. Yeah. I, I agree wholeheartedly with all that, and I don't know if I got anything else to say actually.
Well,
Because I was going to, what was I going to say? I was going to say something about making sure you give your, I think I might have said it already, I can't remember in part one, give yourself opportunities to be able to listen to, what your inner self is telling you, what
yeah.
your higher self is telling you, because I think 'cause too often, as we said, um, we don't. And that's when we
Hmm.
just sort of trudge on
Yeah.
regardless. And we don't give ourselves any opportunities for that yeah, for the beauty of uncertainty. So it's kind of almost seeing it as a real opportunity to
Yeah,
go, oh my God, this is the excitement of life. I
yeah,
don't quite know where it's going. It's that real thrill and adventure of life. It's a little bit, I find it's all a bit dull if you just know
yeah.
exactly what you're doing every single day, every single year. And actually, it's those, yeah, it's the excitement, the twists and the turns and the ups and the downs, which make it all really good fun. So.
Absolutely. And I also think that we forget that actually, we get this one life, and we want to feel alive. How many of us actually feel alive? You know, do we want to be walking through life just feeling like, it's that classic thing of, I was having a conversation. Oh, I know what it was. I was just dropping this in. I was on Five Live a couple of weeks ago, with a lovely guy called Gordon Smart, and we were talking about this when people ask you, how are you? And most of us do that classic response of, I'm all right. Yeah, surviving. But is that how we want to answer that question? Do we want to answer the question of how are you with, surviving, living for the weekend? Oh, it's nearly Friday. I'm just going to make it through. Is that how we want to be living? We want to feel the point of us being here is to actually feel truly alive. And so, and that feeling of aliveness is in those moments more often than not of uncertainty and of something that's come out of left field that we weren't expecting. That tends to be, I think anyway, where we really get those feeling, that feeling where you're just so lit up, where you're just so excited by life. That's
Yeah.
how we're supposed to feel that.
And those days where actually they have just kind of gone in the way that you just did not expect them to go, when you really are just going with the flow and actually you haven't got plans, but you just go and do something really fun. Those sorts of days, which they are the best days when you're not quite sure what to expect, and then something random happens and then you just go with it. I love those days when there's
Yeah,
no agenda and you just end up having such a brilliant time because you don't know what's next. And
yeah,
if you can just go with that, it just makes it so much more fun.
yeah,
And yes, I think I definitely am someone who likes a little bit more risk. My husband, on the other hand, is absolutely risk adverse, and together, I think we make quite a good pair because actually I pull him out of his risk adverseness, and he sometimes kind of pulls me back, which sometimes it's not
mm.
not a bad thing. But um, yeah, I think it's really important to maybe and if you're someone who's thinking, actually, my every day is the same, I do the same old things, I don't really feel that I have those opportunities of uncertainty, then go and find something
Yeah,
which actually pushes you a little bit outside your comfort zone and
mm.
gives you that feeling of fear. I think it's really important that we all have things planned in our diary or which actually make us feel, oh my God, that's a little bit scary. I'm not quite sure
Butterflies.
how that's going to go. Yeah, because when you do them, you feel amazing, and that's how we truly grow.
Yeah,
Um, and carry on growing.
yeah,
Whereas otherwise, we just, as we said, we just stay stuck and stagnant.
yeah, exactly. We've got to take action. We've got to do something we haven't done before and just see where it
Yeah.
leads. Well, look, I mean, for anyone who's listening to this on our podcast, apologies if this sounds like the most random, fractured episode ever. Because we had a break of about 2 hours in between part one and part two, where obviously we forgot everything that we said in the first half. So God knows if this is going to be a remotely interesting listen, or whether anyone's even got this far.
Yeah.
But hopefully someone's taken something from it. So
Yeah, exactly.
yes, and we'll
Well,
be
there we
back
go.
on
That's
Monday.
us. That's just us being keeping it real, Lucy.
Exactly, exactly. So we'll be back on Monday. All right, love.
All right.
Have a
Okay.
lovely weekend. I'll see you
Yeah, you
Monday.
too. All
Lots
right.
of love.
Bye.
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 Bye.